But if what's happening with young people is actually a genuine belief and understanding in the values of classical liberalism, small government, and things like that, maybe, who knows, 20 years from now, it'll be a really great, strong, prosperous country.
Buy my novel, Escape from the Village, from major booksellers online. Go to escapevillage.com. Subscribe to the Substack. Go to fountainheadforum.substack.com. Support the forum. Go to buymeacoffee.com/fountainheadforum. Thank you. Welcome to the party, pal. This is Fountainhead Forum 382, and it's 2 days after those amazing elections in Argentina on Sunday. And I'm talking to Dan Mitchell. We're going to talk about the elections. Also want to go over how exactly these elections work, because this is not not something like the corrupt American system that we have here. It's proportional representation. I'd be curious to learn more about this, but yes, it was a very good day for La Libertad Avanza in Argentina. Javier Milei had a very hostile Chamber of Deputies and a very hostile Senate, and he's going to have one that's a lot less hostile now, and I think maybe he'll be able to accomplish a lot more. How are you, Daniel?
I'm still excited and happy and delirious about the election results. I was very worried going in because there had been that very bad provincial election in Buenos Aires back in early September. And so when the results started coming in not last night, but 2 nights ago, probably the best I felt since my Georgia Bulldogs won the national championship in 21 and 22.
Daniel's with the Center for Freedom and Prosperity. Probably the best I've felt since since the initial election. So, Daniel, one thing I want to go over here. This is a proportional representational system. Can you explain a little bit about how this works exactly? Because, we have districts here, and I'd like to know how this works. Can you go into some detail on that?
Well, there are 2 different types of elections in Argentina. In the Senate, the upper house, every province gets 3 senators, and if your party comes in first in a province, you get 2 senators, and the party that comes in second gets 1. So that's very simple to explain. In the Chamber of Deputies, the lower house, equivalent to the U.S. House of Representatives, it's proportional representation. And so if it's and of course the provinces get seats based on the population. So in a big province, let's just make up some numbers. You're in a province that has 20 seats. If your party wins 50% of the vote, you get 10 seats. If another party wins 30% of the votes, they get 6 seats, and so on and so forth. So it's really it's like a parliamentary system for the lower house in Argentina. You're voting in effect for a party, and then the number of seats that party gets in that province is based on the percentage of the vote you get.
Yeah, and this was how Milei got elected. Another thing we should point out too, in the previous election in 2023, all of that happened, when Milei only got 30% of the vote. So it was not the runoff. And who knows, if we had those elections during the runoff, he might have done a lot better. But that's why Milei did not have a whole lot of support in the Congress at all. And it still is somewhat of a winner take all, but it sounds like it's a better system than what we got here. So I had looked up some of these things, and I wanted to, this was just an overall great election. La Libertad Avanza ended up with about 40% of the total vote. And this was out of, I think 24,000 people voted. So yeah.
It's as you probably remember, from and met some of the people down in Argentina on Sunday. I was messaging with probably 15, 20 people all throughout the day, and there was not a lot of optimism, and people were saying, well, the main thing is we have to get more votes. We have to beat the Peronists in terms of the vote totals. But as you said, it's like 16 to 17 percentage points. It was a landslide. It was so far beyond what I think anybody was actually expecting. So no wonder the Argentinian stock market, financial markets have boomed ever since, because the sort of threat, the fear of the Peronists coming back into power has now receded, and there's now hope that Milei has enough support in the legislature. I mean, as you pointed out, his party does not control the legislature after the elections, but they're close enough that in theory, with some coalition, going in coalition with some smaller parties, maybe he can get the labor law reform, the tax reform, do free trade, some of the things that are still necessary to make Argentina a much more market-oriented economy.
Yeah, this is just amazing. I mean, yeah, I'm seeing in a total, there's 9,341,798 votes. And that ended up being out of the 127 seats, 64 went to La Libertad Avanza, 31 went to Fuerza Patria, and all the others after that are either 2 or 1. It's
now I should point out, Chris, that that in Argentina, not every member of the lower house and upper house is elected at the same time. Only one half of the Chamber of Deputies was up for re-election, and only 1/3 of the Senate. So their Senate is like ours. Every 2 years, 1/3 of them are up for re-election. Yeah. So Milei got a few members in a couple of years ago. He got a lot more now, and so who knows? Maybe his party can actually take control in the when he hopefully runs for re-election in 2027, and then you could genuinely have a libertarian, classical liberal powerhouse where he can basically turn Argentina into what Hong Kong used to be before China cracked down.
Yeah, and that would just be, or turn it into what America was, in the 1800s. The Senate also went 13 out of 24 seats. I mean, 24 provinces, 24 seats. One thing I will point out, they have 3 senators for every province, whereas America has 2 senators for every state. So there is a senator up every year, but yeah, and 6 for Fuerza Patria, and 2 for Frente Cívico por Santiago, and 2 for Fuerza Entre Rios. So those are just some of the regional parties. Yeah, there's a lot of what people may not realize too. There's a lot of provincial parties in Argentina. It'd be like a party for the state of California or a party for the state of Wyoming. So it's a really very open system, and it's so much better than what we have here. Although anything would be,
Well, I do like our separation of power system, but I agree with you, of course, that unfortunately the classical liberal vision of the founding fathers has been substantially eroded. Our economic liberties aren't protected like they should have been as the Constitution was drafted. But still, separation of powers is a very good thing, and I'm thankful that we do have that in the U.S.
Yeah, I'm just talking about the failed democracy that we have here, where you basically have one party where they basically conspire to keep any real competition out. It's a complete disaster, and I don't know if any other country has a system like ours.
We have what I believe in electoral politics analysis is called a first past the post system.
Yeah,
which means whoever gets a plurality in a congressional race, you win that race, and it does create a lot of pressure for a 2-party system. It's very difficult for a third-party candidate to, when there's no runoff and things like that. It does. Our friends in the Libertarian Party complain about that all the time. I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, I don't think there's going to be any way to fix America until the elections are fixed, and not to mention all the rigging of ballot access and other things, and all the other things where they rig the elections. I mean, I criticize democracy, but it's not really a democracy here at all. But I don't want to go into too much detail that. So I'm just going to go province by province, and I mean, this is just so wild. It's funny. Alphabetically has also the. Maybe I should just share the screen here. I'm actually looking at the Spanish Wikipedia page, which actually has more detail than the English Wikipedia page. But it's funny how Buenos Aires province is the most has the most deputies and also has the most, is also first alphabetically. So 35 seats in Buenos Aires, and 17 of them went to La Libertad Avanza. And
what's amazing about that is we already talked about in early September, there was that provincial race in Buenos Aires province where Milei's party lost badly, and that's what caused a lot of people to get concerned. It caused financial markets to weaken because of the threat of the Peronists taking power again. Well, in the election just last Sunday, Milei's party basically tied with the Peronists. So it was a huge comeback in Buenos Aires province, in addition to outright victories, impressive victories in some of the other major provinces.
Yeah, I think this was probably the biggest surprise out of the whole day. I mean, there were a lot of nice surprises here, but this was by far the biggest one. This was not, I mean, this would be like a libertarian winning the counties that surround Washington, D.C. It's huge.
Well, what I wrote, Chris, is that it would be like Ron Paul winning governor of California or something like that. Just totally unexpected given the electorate and the past performance.
And I do want to point out that the Buenos Aires province is not does not include the city, which is its own separate political unit in some manner, like Washington, D.C. But yeah, and of course, some of the prominent names like Diego Santilli, Karen Reichardt, the lady who was on the cover of Playboy some years back, the Argentine version of Playboy, and a few other people here. A lot of them don't even have Wikipedia pages yet. Here's the federal capital, Caba, as they like to call it. 7 out of 13, which is certainly not a majority, but the most of any there. And I guess the politics of Buenos Aires itself is not quite as anti-capitalist as the province, right? Or
I think in the when Milei won in 2023, he won Buenos Aires City, but did not win Buenos Aires province. That was actually his third worst electoral. There are, I think, 24 electoral provinces or voting districts, whatever you want to call them. Milei won all but 3, and one of the ones he lost was Buenos Aires province.
Yeah, Massa won the Buenos Aires province, but Milei did win Buenos Aires City, 57-42 over Massa. So that was but the fact is that it was only 50 point, and Massa only got 50.76 versus 49.24. So that's not really certainly not a unsurmountable lead either. That was a pretty good. Massa won 4 provinces in the runoff. They were also Chaco, Formosa, and Santiago del Estero. So we'll keep going down through this list. Yeah, so that was another good win. Then we go to Catamarca, which only has 3 seats. The Fuerza Patria got 2 of those, and La Libertad Avanza got 1. So a loss, but there's still 1 seat there. And that was a province that Milei won basically 53-47. So yeah, we'll go down through Catamarca. Then Chaco, La Libertad Avanza got 2 out of 4, and Fuerza Patria got 2 out of 4. So neither got a majority. So there's and we go down. And as I pointed out, Milei lost Chaco. Chubut, I like that name. Two people here and two deputies here, and La Libertad Avanza got 1, and the other one was the Frente Unidos Podemos. So I guess that would be one of the local parties, or the Union por la Patria. Maybe they're part of that. So yeah. So that was another, yeah. So we'll scroll down here again. Cordoba, La Libertad Avanza got 5 out of 9. So definitely another place where did not get the majority of the votes, but got the majority of the seats. So, and then there's 3 to Provincias Unidas and 1 to Defendamos Cordoba. So defend Cordoba, yeah. So that's another one of those local parties. Lady in this delegation named Laura Rodriguez Machado. I don't get the impression that she's any relation to Maria Corina Machado, but I just thought I'd check. So
I confess I don't know.
Yeah. Corrientes. This was another place in the provincial elections where Milei didn't do that well. 3 seats up, and all three parties each party got 1. So Vamos Corrientes, which is We Are Corrientes, or Let's Go Corrientes, La Libertad Avanza, and Fuerza Patria. So yeah.
The key thing on some of these smaller regional parties is to what extent are they willing to deal with Milei, probably get a little bit of pork barrel spending or whatever in exchange for votes on the big picture labor law reform and tax reform. I'm assuming that a lot of these politicians from these small parties don't have any ideology, don't have any sort of political soul, but are for sale. And well, we just have to figure out what their purchase price is so we can get their support.
Well, I'm hoping we don't have a lot of pork barrel projects, but maybe, we can certainly figure some things out here too. I mean, these people, they probably are much more on their own, so to speak. Entre Rios, there's 3 there, and 2 for Fuerza Patria, Fuerza Entre Rios. So that's 5 seats. So La Libertad Avanza got 3. They got a clear majority there. Okay, now we go to Formosa. This is a small province. 2 seats, 1 for La Libertad Avanza and 1 for Frente de la Victoria. So victory for the front, or front victory. Yeah. So Formosa, from what I hear, is a very interesting case. It's almost like this little dictatorship by the provincial governor there. It's definitely, and it's also a very poor province.
Well, I'll also make a second confession here. On all my trips to Argentina, I've only been to Buenos Aires. So when you start talking about some of these provinces, you're basically talking to a complete rookie in terms of my specific knowledge.
Formosa is actually they're up north. It actually is the province that has the longest border with Paraguay. There's 3 provinces that border Paraguay, and it has the longest border, so it's right on that river. They have it's definitely not one of the. It doesn't. They're not yet. Yeah, the governor has been the governor since 1995. Hildo Insfran.
So I gather there are no term limits.
This is kind of also looks like there's also since it's close to Paraguay, there's also a fair-sized indigenous population. I can only imagine how well they're treated or how well they're not treated, but yes. So Formosa is a small, probably also one of the poor provinces.
I was told on one of my trips that the northern provinces tend to be the poorer ones in Argentina. I don't know if that's also true when you go way down south toward Tierra del Fuego. But the center of the country apparently is the wealthier part of the country. And then as you go north, especially, that's the poorer part of the country.
Yeah. Then we get to Jujuy, or Jujuy. Yes, that's spelled Jujuy. That's definitely one of my favorite names. Also, three seats there. 2 went to La Libertad Avanza, and the other went to Frente Jujuy Crece. So another provincial party got 1 seat.
And I have to say, Chris, if getting support for labor law reform and tax reform requires Milei having to agree to build a new bridge or highway in one of these provinces to pay off some of the smaller third parties, as far as I'm concerned, that's unfortunate, but I'll take it as long as he keeps the pork barrel spending within low levels. We need the big structural reform for Argentina to really prosper.
Yeah, Buenos Aires has a lot better infrastructure than out in the other cities. It's really a case, where the capital is accumulated a lot of the wealth. Here we go to La Pampa. Frente Defendamos La Pampa. Defend La Pampa, and that's 2 out of 3, and seats, and La Libertad Avanza got 1 there also. Another. So yeah, you bring these small provinces together, yeah, and then same case in La Rioja. Federales Defendamos La Rioja got 1 out of 2, and La Libertad Avanza got 1 out of 2. So that's there's not. They really got some small provinces here. It's sometimes I wonder why they don't divide up some of these big provinces. If you have all these small ones and have all these little ones, but who knows? It might see more people go here. Yeah, that is one thing though. If they do get some more infrastructure out in some of these places, it would certainly help them out. Mendoza, which is La Libertad Avanza, got 4 out of 5, and I know Mendoza was always and the other one was the Mendoza local party. I knew Milei was very popular in Mendoza. Yeah, he got 71% against Massa in Mendoza. That was arguably that was his best province in 2 years ago. Oh, and Milei only got 43% in Formosa, which tells you maybe. I'm curious also though, when you got some guy who's been governing the province for that long, if there's not some shenanigans going on there or not. I don't know what you had to say about that, but have you looked into how the voting system works? People say it's been cleaned up since the last election.
My understanding is, and this is, I tend to focus, of course, just on the economic policy, but I think they moved to paper ballots, and they had a much better system for security with poll watchers. I mean, certainly the fact that Milei did well suggests that the Peronists had very limited opportunities to commit fraud. So let's hope their elections are now much, much better. Remember in the U.S., I mean, Florida back in 2000 was an utter disaster. And now Florida, they have their final results almost right away. So it is possible to take a jurisdiction that had terrible voting procedures with a lot of irregularities and make it a very efficient system that produces the vote count quickly. But again, I have no clue on the details of what the old system was in Argentina. How much could the Peronists steal versus what they have now? I just knew that people talked about there being a problem. I assume with all the smoke, there was probably some fire.
Yeah, well, you actually had different party ballots as well. It was really wild. And now everybody's just a unified ballot. So that's one thing I'll probably have some other people talk about that too on the next shows. Misiones, La Libertad Avanza got 2 out of 3, and another case also, Frente Renovador de la Concordia Neo. That's another provincial party. So, although it doesn't have the name in it, yeah, there's a lot of these provincial parties. I think could really. They're going to have a lot more power to their to what they have in here. Yeah. Now we have Neocan. La Libertad Avanza also got 2 out of 3. So the other one was La Neocanidad, another provincial party. Yeah, the provincial parties are going to be very interesting here. I'm really seeing. I can assume that the Fuerza Patria is going to be against Milei, but where they
end up that's the Patria is Peronist, right?
Yeah, it's Peronist. They're progressives. I mean, that's Kirchner and Kisselhoff and Massa. Yeah, they're. But and Milei, this is where Milei is brilliant. Is he really knows how to get people to. Not a nice way to say it, but he knows how to turn people into his own useful idiots. Which is fine with me. Rio Negro, 2 seats, 1 to La Libertad Avanza, 1 to Fuerza Patria. So. Salta, 2 out of 3, La Libertad Avanza got here, and Primero Los Salteños, that was 1, so the local Salta party got 1 seat, and what's also interesting here too is I know, I'm certainly a big fan of Maria Amelia Orozco. She went from the Chamber of Deputies to the Senate after this election. Mm-hmm. So I'm not sure exactly how that happened, but yeah. So I think she was probably a big part of the wins in Salta, because the provincial elections in Salta were actually very good for Milei, or La Libertad Avanza. So, and Salta was 58% for Milei back in 2023 in the runoff. So so yeah, Salta was someplace we definitely expected to see good news. San Juan, two San Juan parties got two of the seats, and then La Libertad Avanza got one seat as well. They were all pretty much distributed 1/3. So that's San Luis. La Libertad Avanza got 2 out of 3, and Frente Justicialista got the other seat. So that's the justicialists, as they call them. Or that's no, that's another part of the Fuerza Patria, but maybe a different offshoot of that. But they only got 51% of the vote too, but they did manage to get 2 seats. So that's a good sign. Yeah. Santa Cruz, local party there got 2 seats. That's Fuerza Santa Cruceña, and La Libertad Avanza got 1 seat. So one thing is we're seeing at least 1 seat in every province so far. There's no complete shutouts. So,
well, if you had 3 seats in a province, I guess you'd have to get 68% of the vote to get all 3. It'd be very difficult.
Well, you'd have to get at least 68%. And maybe if you had a bunch of little parties, divide up the other third. But yeah, Santa Fe, La Libertad Avanza got 4 out of 9. Fuerza Patria got 3 out of 9, and Provincias Unidas got 2 out of 9. Santa Fe, Milei got 62%. So that's maybe not quite as good as we thought, but that was. Yeah, 40% of the vote yielded 4 out of 9 seats. So that's about right. Yeah. Oh, okay. Spoke too soon. La Libertad Avanza got completely shut out in Santiago del Estero. 3 seats and no seats there. La Libertad Avanza got less than 15% of the overall vote. The Frente Cívico por Santiago got 51.36 and 2 out of 3 seats, and Fuerza Patria Peronista got 1 out of 3. So 1 out of those 3 seats. So that was one. Yeah, that was Santiago del Estero. Milei got 31% of the vote there against Massa. So that's not really a surprise. That was Milei's worst province in 2003 or 2023.
Where is that in the country? I don't even know.
Santiago del Estero. Okay, Santiago del Estero. That is north central. It's north. It doesn't border Paraguay. It doesn't border Chile or any of the others. It's kind of in the. If you go
center north.
Yeah, center north, but it's 12th in population. The capital is also Santiago del Estero. So it's so that's Tierra del Fuego. 2 seats. 1 for La Libertad Avanza, 1 for Fuerza Patria. So, yeah. Tucumán got 4 seats, 2 for Tucumán Primero and 2 for La Libertad Avanza. So, another provincial party, they got 50% of the vote. La Libertad Avanza got 35. So everybody else got shut out of that. So, yeah. Now we're going to go through the Senate votes. In the capital, again, although we didn't have as many capital seats up, but La Libertad Avanza got 2 out of 3. Patricia Bullrich is one of those, so she's going to be a senator now. Any idea who's going to end up replacing her in the cabinet, or do we know yet?
I have no clue.
Yep. Fuerza Patria got one other Senate seat, so that's Yeah. Chaco, also La Libertad Avanza gets 2 out of 3 here. Fuerza Patria gets the other one. Entre Rijos, La Libertad Avanza gets 2 out of 3. Fuerza Entre Rijos gets 1 out of 3. Neocan, La Libertad Avanza gets 2 out of 3. Neocanidad gets 1 out of 3. Rio Negro, Fuerza Patria gets 2 out of 3. La Libertad Avanza gets 1 out of 3. Salta, La Libertad Avanza gets 2 out of 3. Primero de los Salteños gets 1 out of 3. Yes, Maria Emilia Orozco gets one of those seats, and the other is Gonzalo Guzman Coraita. So, Santiago del Estero, shut out again completely for La Libertad Avanza. 2 seats went to Frente Cívico por Santiago, and the other was Fuerza Patria Peronista. That's 1 out of 3. Now, like I said, that was Milei's worst province. Tierra del Fuego, La Libertad Avanza also gets 2 out of 3, and Fuerza Patria gets 1. So that is all of the makeup of La Libertad Avanza now. So now we're going to see a good, this is going to be very nice to see what we have here. I assume Wikipedia is a trustworthy source because they do organize this stuff well. So from there, well, we've got it's definitely looking good. How many seats overall? La Libertad Avanza had 6 in the 72, and I think 38 out of the 257 before. Now it's going to be.
Yeah, I showed the breakdown in the column I wrote yesterday, but I don't remember the numbers right offhand.
Okay.
But I think the Peronists lost 6 seats in the Senate, which was really key because the horse trading that can go on in the Senate. Milei should be able to buy their votes in effect. And I think the between Milei and the pro party of Macri, I think they actually have, if I remember correctly, don't hold me to this, I think they actually have more seats now than the Peronists in the Chamber of Deputies. But of course, as you've pointed out, the balance of power is still these little regional parties.
Yeah, well, as you pointed out, there were you showed it. Well, your chart here says, look, going into this, we had La Libertad Avanza had 40 seats in the Chamber of Deputies and 6 seats in the House. That's 40 out of 257 and 6 out of 72. And there are so many more seats now. And now we're looking at La Libertad Avanza having 81 out of the 257 seats. And it looks like the Peronistas still have their so that's 81 out of 257. I mean, they can't ignore you when you have that many. You're going to be a factor, definitely. It's there's a whole lot of seats here. The gains are amazing. What you've gotten out of here, which and I guess you can bet on elections here. I find that kind of wild. And the betting markets were definitely toward La Libertad Avanza. You think somebody was messing with the betting markets, or?
I saw on Sunday, people were sending me all sorts of screenshots and links to betting market stuff, and it just added to my anxiety because earlier in the day it showed the movement toward the Peronists, and so I wanted to just grit my teeth and wait for actual results. But as we got toward the end of the day, toward the results being released, that's when all of a sudden the rumors turned positive. But I wasn't going to believe them. I didn't want to get my hopes up for nothing.
Yeah, you don't want to get your hopes up for nothing. Yeah, it's and sometimes when you have lower expectations, I think the other thing too is you end up working harder than if you think it's going to be easy. There's a lot of factors that go involved in all this. It's so wild. I mean, it was overall a really good election.
Oh, it was. I mean, there's only been. I wrote on Monday. There's only been a handful of elections in my life where I was genuinely happy. Reagan in '80, the Brexit election in 2016, and this midterm election. Actually, I was more excited about this than Milei's original victory because I guess you know, when I talked to people in Argentina about Milei back in 2023, they, even people who are sort of friendly to us philosophically, they didn't think Milei had a chance. And it was only like in the last week, and I wasn't even paying super attention back then. It was only in the last week where all of a sudden people were saying, I think this crazy guy Milei might win. And so I paid attention at the end, but It's not like I was following it religiously like I did on Sunday.
Yeah, and here's your other breakdown too. You had this, 97 for Fuerza Patria, 93 for La Libertad Avanza, 17 for Provincias Unidas, 14 for Pro, and 12 fourth, and a few others for other parties. But that's a 93 out of 257 is a good. I mean, that's still not a majority, but yeah, that's a. They're going to be. I think just watching how the results went. I think the party's also going to realize, they're not. They really want what Milei's offering. They're going to realize that too. So, and maybe they're just sick and tired of the bullshit, so to speak. That's not to mention, Dan. There's another important factor here too. Is Milei is still was still 70% approval rating with Argentines under 30.
Yeah, the youth vote was absolutely critical, and that's still his biggest base of support, which gives me hope that in the future, Argentina is not going to be a clientelist state. I mean, one of the things that worried me, especially after that Buenos Aires provincial election, is, well, maybe these voters have just been so used to the 50, 60, 70 years of Peronism that they just expect government to be Santa Claus for them. And so I worried, okay, well, Milei solved the immediate crisis. There's no more hyperinflation. He balanced the budget. There's economic growth now. Poverty is coming down. And I worried that, well, gee, we solved the problem. Now maybe the government can start giving us money again. But if what's happening with young people is actually a genuine belief and understanding in the values of classical liberalism, small government, and things like that, maybe, who knows, 20 years from now, it'll be a really great, strong, prosperous country.
Daniel, I think this has also been a tragic failure for libertarians and also for free market conservatives for a long time. And I tweeted this out today, and I stand by it completely. It's a huge mistake to assume that young voters will be socialists. Getting people off socialism is just like getting a coke addict off cocaine. The longer the addiction, the tougher it will be to break the addiction. Young people haven't been addicted as long as old people.
Well, I think also, I mean, I agree with you on that, but let me add a corollary to that. Young people want to be inspired by something. They're still, fresh. Their life outlook is still fresh. And Milei, to his credit, he wasn't like U.S. Republicans who simply want to manage the welfare state more efficiently or something like that. Milei was pointing out that government is the problem and that the solution is to dramatically downsize government. And I think Reagan used to say, people want bold colors, not pale pastels. And that was I think, very, very appropriate for the analysis in Argentina. Milei was able to sort of break this sort of Peronist ratchet of moving toward more statism, precisely because he said the whole system's a corrupt racket.
Yeah, and they've watched it. I mean, I think also when you're younger and you hear your grandparents talk about the good old days and how things were better, and you read in the history books. I mean, I remember growing up as a teenager. That was one of the first things I said. It just seems like America used to be a lot better than it was, and what's happened? And so I got into history, and then I said, okay, here's what these men really believed in, and we've completely veered off course there. I don't know if maybe the Argentines are discovering something like that too. I mean, maybe they're reading Juan Bautista Alberti or somebody like that and just looking at the history of their own country. It's,
well, Argentina's original constitution was very much a classical liberal constitution, similar to the U.S. Constitution, and limited government, protection of individual freedoms. So if Argentina can go back to its roots, let's not forget it was one of the 10 richest countries in the world as late as like 1950. But then the Peronists ruined it. Now Milei's trying to save it, and let's hope that he can get those votes in the legislature now to do the big structural reforms that can't be done by executive authority.
Yeah, and they're more likely to stick if he does them that way. I often say, well, if an executive order can get rid of this, then what stops the next executive from just starting it up again? Yeah. But if he gets some of these things, and I really believe that he's doing what Ayn Rand said was necessary. Ayn Rand said there needs to be a philosophical re-education before we get involved in politics. But he's been using his political position to achieve that philosophical re-education. And I just think that's really pretty phenomenal. It's
it's one thing. I think he got elected perhaps mostly because the Peronists had failed. So people were saying, we just have to roll the dice and do something else. But in the long run, I think you're exactly right. Ayn Rand is exactly right. You have to change hearts and minds and make people realize philosophically the value of individual freedom.
Well, and as I've said on this show many times, Daniel, we have a lot of wonderful economists. We've got a lot of wonderful writers, historians. They're all great people. They're smart. They're bright. They write. They do good work. Javier Milei has all those things, but he's also a showman.
Yeah.
And some of our academic friends, I mean, they're great people, but they are just so boring. But not Milei. He goes out there and he puts on a show and makes people want to watch him. I mean, we need more great academics, but we also need more people who are lead singers of Rolling Stone cover bands.
Yes, no, I unfortunately, I think you're probably talking about me when you say, okay, yeah. boring old policy wonks. I'm very glad that there are people like Javier Milei out there that can make the idea sound a lot sexier and more exciting.
There's a lot of, hey, I don't want to, you're all, there's some people who just, and some people, I don't know if it's possible to get that combination very often. Sometimes it's a partnership, but boy, he knows how to do both. And I hope we can get more people out there because it is very much a show. And I think sometimes maybe in the area of social media, it's becoming more that way. I mean, it really wasn't that way before the radio and the television.
I guess that was back in the days, at least in the U.S., of what we call machine politics.
Yeah.
And the Peronists had their version of machine politics. It was all about bribing people with other people's money. And it's great. I think one of the subtle things about what's changed is because the Peronists don't control the machinery of government, they're not able to as effectively bribe people to go out to vote. What we might call in the U.S. walking around money.
Yeah, that could be walking around money. It's just and if there's less bribery, I mean, we'll have more. Hopefully, we'll have more people just, they'll understand that markets work, and we'll end up with the markets that just understand that markets do these things so much better. The turnout was about 68%. That was people said that was low, and some people were worried about that. I think maybe we just have a nature to be pessimistic, and we still aren't getting used to winning. And now maybe we'll get used to winning. But
what's remarkable about those numbers is, in theory, voting is mandatory in Argentina. Where you could get fined if you don't vote, and yet obviously a lot of people just say, forget it. And I guess maybe there's no penalties, or maybe it's just like a 10 peso fine or whatever. But in countries like Australia, where there's mandatory voting, the voting rate is very, very high. And so it would be curious to actually find out, what's the difference in penalties between one country and another.
Well, and there are some exemptions. I think if you're old or very young, you're exempt. But yes, some cases voting is, you will get fined if you don't vote. I'm not really. That seems to be. some people would like to see that here. I'm not really sure if that would work better or worse for. I
Well,
think
it reminds me of the PJ O'Rourke quote: "Don't vote; it only encourages them."
Yeah, I don't think it necessarily. Yeah, I don't know if it necessarily encourages them. But yeah, it certainly is. It certainly does change things. It certainly. I often say, people say, well, you can't complain if you don't vote, and I'm just saying, well, then that's why I vote, is so I can complain. Yeah. So La Libertad Avanza has 36.2 seats in the Chamber of Deputies now, so that's not bad at all to have. It's and I think we'll definitely end up with a better. Hopefully, he'll be able to do a lot. I don't know what he'll do first. When does this take hold in December? Or when does this new Congress take over?
Well, that's actually something I've never asked. I know back in 2023, Milei got elected in November, and then he was inaugurated in December. Does that mean that there's a month wait or so for the new Congress to take office? The main thing is whenever they do, here's what I'm hoping for, Chris. In Milei's first year in office, even though the legislature was overwhelmingly against him, they did pass this basis law, BASES. Yes. What it means in Spanish, I have no idea. But that basis law gave Milei a lot of authority to make reforms, and so there were some Peronists, obviously, who voted for that, and they, maybe because they realized themselves that, oh my God, we've gone too far towards statism. We need to give this guy some leeway to liberalize the economy. But I've also been told that that the Peronists are not uniformly leftist. They're populist, but some of them are, I guess we should say, semi-rational on economic policy. And so I'm sort of hoping that in 2026, because Milei got all this momentum from the big election and these minor parties that we've already talked about, presumably being open to deals, but then maybe some of the rational Peronists are going to say, look, we got our heads handed to us. Milei got a mandate. Maybe we should go along with some of the tax reform, labor law reform, trade liberalization, because that is what happened in 24. Milei's momentum, he got stuff through not nearly, of course, what he wanted to, but he still got enough through the legislature with that basis law that he did some really good things for the 1 year period. So I'm now semi-optimistic we'll get some of these structural reforms that do require approval by the legislature.
I suppose at the time they were probably saying, let's give him the power and hope that he fails. And now there's this whole, free markets actually work. I mean, can you imagine, if you remember that stupid letter that all those so-called economists wrote before the election, this is going to be a disaster if Javier Milei is elected. And it was people like, that Thomas Piketty and other people like that. By the way, an embarrassing fact about myself, I have the exact same birthday as that guy. So I maybe I should disavow my birthday based on that, but who knows?
Well, yeah, in the modern world, you can just identify as having a different birthday, so it's fine.
Yes, I was born Taurus, but I identify as Pisces. Yeah, they'll just do that. Yeah.
I think it's great that if it's not a ton of economists. I think it was 108 or 117.
Yeah,
but it was like instead of being the Forbes 400, it was the idiot 117, and they now look so incredibly incompetent and wrong and stupid because, of course, Milei came in, did even more than anyone thought he could do, and the economy grew. Poverty came down. Incomes are going up. All these great things happen. And so these people, I'm going to hang it around their necks for the rest of their lives. Look, you're the person, Piketty or some of the others. By the way, 11 of them, I think, were from the University of Massachusetts Amherst. So whatever's in the water there in that economics department, it must be like a rat's nest, a Marxist or something. But every single one of them is now on record as being spectacularly incompetent and lousy in terms of economics.
I look at the whole history of America, and with the exception of the Boston Tea Party, we probably would have been just better off if Massachusetts had never existed. I mean, between the Puritan socialists and Harvard and all the other stupid nonsense that's come out of that state over the years. Well, there was a lot of anti-slavery activity too, but man, it's the positives certainly outweigh the negative. It's that just happens. One person says sign this, and the others, and what's forgotten too is economists are actually much better than most people in academia.
Yeah, no, that's true
because they've actually studied economics.
Well, a majority of economists in academia do lean left, but they're not nearly as crazy as English departments, history departments, of course, sociology departments. 100% of them are terrible. Even if you're a left-wing economist, you do tend to understand a little bit about microeconomics and price theory. And so left-wing economists usually understand that things like rent control and minimum wages have negative effects. But the left-wing economists are still bad about Keynesian economics, and they still tend to be bad about, it's government's job to tax and redistribute.
Yeah, they still think that to a certain extent. It's like Bowtie Mar put out, this was, Milei versus Massa. 16 to 24, 69% Milei, 25 to 34, 54% Milei, 35 to 44, only 45% Milei. But still, so we've got, there's a lot of good things happening here. I mean, it's really, this was a good election. And a lot of pleasant surprises. I mean, Buenos Aires was the biggest surprise, but without a doubt, I wonder where the Peronists and all these people are going to regroup. It's, as I jokingly said on Sunday, Peronism died today, and it was Hillary Clinton's birthday. That seems appropriate, but where are they going to go from here? Are they just going to get old and eventually die out?
Well, I fear there will always be an endless supply of politicians trying to get elected playing Santa Claus. So I don't think the problem will ever go away. But if young people today they live through in their young years the disaster of Peronism, Milei comes in, attracts them, gets their votes, and the economy then goes up. That's going to, I think, really cement their understanding and appreciation for limited government. So it's another area where I'm semi-optimistic. I think that, just like people who were young, like me during the Reagan years, came out of that with a much deeper and better appreciation for controlling the size of government than, say, people who were young during the Obama years, when there was sort of that that heady feeling, somehow we're going to become a post-racial society and everyone's going to love each other. And of course, Obama didn't wind up delivering any of that. But nonetheless, I think it did cement the loyalties of some young people to vote on the left.
I think a lot of people went out who were in the middle, went out and voted on Obama, said, okay, if we elect a black president, we can finally move beyond race. And then the left got worse after that. It emboldened.
And the modern identity politics by the left has really hurt the Democratic Party. So I tell my Republican friends all the time, you should be encouraging the left to be doing things like land acknowledgements and putting boys and girls sports, and because that stuff is just toxic, I think, for the Democratic Party brand. I'm off in the world of economic policy wonk stuff, but I have to confess, I don't think some of that stuff moves the voters unless there's a crisis. Obviously, Jimmy Carter created such a mess that it gave us Reagan. The Peronists created such a mess, Kirchner et al., that it gave Argentina Milei. But it's not that often that economic issues tend to dominate elections, which, as an economist, of course, makes me jealous and envious.
I think Jimmy Carter inherited the mess, but yeah.
You're preaching to the choir. I mean, Richard Nixon was a big government statist. Gerald Ford was a placeholder. So a lot of the structural problems that existed in the U.S. economy, were already there. I mean, and Jimmy Carter did a few good things like deregulating transportation.
Yeah, the airlines. And then Reagan. I mean, Reagan truly had a mandate. I mean, and was still easily the most popular president of my lifetime, and he and did almost nothing with it once he got in there. It's just.
Well, I think Reagan doesn't get enough appreciation for the fact that he reduced overall government spending by 1 percentage point of GDP during his 8 years. But much more important, he reduced domestic spending by more than 2.5% of GDP. Now, there was additional defense spending, net interest costs went up, but the net effect was still 1% less spending. But for those of us who want to shrink the social welfare state, that 2.6 or 2.7, I forget what it was exactly. I mean, Reagan did a lot more than people realize during his time in office.
I do wonder, yeah, and that's the whole thing. You know, I don't know. I still like to think that there was something about Milei that made this possible, and it wasn't just things being so horrible there.
But. Now, by the way, I just said, we need to give Reagan more credit for reducing domestic spending by 2.6, 2.7% of GDP. In Milei's first year, he reduced government spending in Argentina by 6 percentage points of GDP, an all-time record for fiscal consolidation in peacetime in any country in the world at any point in history. So Milei is like he's like Reagan and Thatcher on steroids. I mean, it really is amazing. Now, of course, he inherited a much worse situation. I mean, as bad as the US and the UK were, Argentina was like veering into Venezuela territory. And so it might have been easier for Milei to make improvements, but nonetheless, the improvement has been giant.
Yes, and there are a lot of Venezuelan migrants living in Argentina now, and Milei is very popular with them, and Milei likes them too. It's I think Daniel, I really do believe also this could lead to a renaissance just for Western civilization overall. I mean, there's no. People ask me why I talk so much about Milei. I mean, what else is there? What other reasons are there to be optimistic anywhere? Maybe we're seeing some things in South America because people are definitely paying attention to him all over in the Spanish-speaking world. I mean, he spoke at CPAC Paraguay, last month, so I think he's having an influence all over South America. That could. I'm going to be interesting to see what happens with Johannes Kaiser in Chile up here in a couple of weeks too. I hope that ends up being a positive result. No, and Rodrigo Paz in Bolivia, he certainly seemed congratulatory toward Milei as well. Although some people have doubts about Paz, but maybe Paz will be positive. And boy, that's a country that certainly needs some free market reforms because Bolivia is a very important country.
I speak all over the world, and this year alone. Whether I'm speaking in China or someplace in Latin America, or whether I'm speaking in all sorts of different countries in Europe, in the world of policymakers and politicians, people are paying attention to Milei. And so I agree with you, Chris. I mean, if Milei doing good things and getting good results is one thing, doing good things and getting good economic results and then winning a landslide election, that's what these politicians notice and they care about and they pay attention. So I agree with you. I think Milei, could be the leader of a new revolution for freedom worldwide in the same way that Reagan and Thatcher inspired other countries to do better things.
Yeah.
So I'm really, really hopeful.
Well, Dan, Thatcher certainly put the brakes on things, but Britain was on a suicide course before Thatcher, and Britain is on a suicide course after her. And I think it's over for Western Europe. I really do.
It is very hard to get optimistic.
Including Britain, the great home of liberalism. It's so sad to watch it happen, but it's just. I mean, when they're arresting people for social media, but then they're allowing these rape gangs to get away with. It's like, why did we fight for you guys? I hope something positive happens here.
I will say, I've had plenty of conversations with people in the UK on my trips there. Both Reform and Tories are noticing Milei's success. Now, Whether that actually translates, into finally kicking this utterly incompetent, disastrous Labor government out of office, and unfortunately, they have close to 4 years before they have to call an election, and God knows how much damage they'll do in that amount of time. But if both Tories and Reform can sort of go back to sort of the small government, classical liberalism, Thatcherism, because I agree with you, they're on a downward path. They might even beat France and Italy into bankruptcy the way that they're going with Keir Starmer as their prime minister. But every country, I think literally every, and I probably went to 20 countries this year. I think I was asked about Milei in every single country, probably because people notice that, just like you, I write about it a lot, speak about it a lot, mention it a lot. But I am hoping that there's going to be a copycat effect. I hope we see it in Chile when they have their presidential election later this year. I hope that the new president of Bolivia takes to heart what Milei is doing. I don't want politicians who simply mouth the words. I want them to go in and actually change the policy, shrink the burden of government, get rid of all the regulations and protectionism and subsidies and handouts that distort their economies. We need more economic liberty, period.
Yeah. Dan, since you travel so much, what other places around the world do give you optimism?
Well, if you want a country that's very well run and is reasonably classically liberal in terms of its governance, Switzerland. They have a great system of federalism, which I think plays an important role in keeping overall government spending under control. In the European context, of course, to be a liberal means to be free market. That they've literally never had a left-wing government in Switzerland since 1848. It's always been under the control of people who are at least reasonable. They have a liberal party, which is genuinely free market. They have this populist party. I forget what their name is, maybe Freedom Party or something like that. They're populist, mostly because of immigration, but they're not bad on economics. And then, of course, you have a standard European Christian Democrat Party, which might be a little bit weak-kneed from our perspective. But nonetheless, those parties are always in coalition, by and large, keeping government under control. I mean, the burden of government there is only 32% of GDP, whereas right next door in France, it's over 50% of GDP. Yeah. Right next door in Italy, 50% of GDP. Germany has really gone downhill in the last 10 years. They're now in that 50% club of the burden of government becoming enormous. So I don't understand if you're in Europe. And I said this recently on a speech in France, where I said, I asked them to raise your hand. Do you think you have better schools in Switzerland? Do you think you have better roads? Do you think you have better hospitals? And nobody really was raising their hands. And I said, okay, well, Switzerland delivers everything that people sometimes think government should deliver, and they're doing it only spending 32% of GDP, whereas in France, they're spending over 50% of GDP. What are they getting for all that money? They're getting a worse economy. So I would think that a French version of Javier Milei could run with that message and maybe inspire the French to become classical liberals, just like Milei inspired the Argentinians.
Here's what's wild. In France, there's actually a party that calls themselves the Mileist Party. So we have a case now, at least one case, where a political party has named itself after Javier Milei. That's quite impressive. And it's in France, where they don't. Well, some of them probably know Spanish because they're both derived from Latin, but that really impressed me. This is a very exciting time. It certainly makes me want to go down there. I'm glad to hear you were happy with Switzerland. This was an optimistic election. The only thing I think where we got to be a little more cautious now is that the Kirchnerists, the Peronists, they're going to be more desperate now. And when you get, the more desperate people get, the more crazier things they might do. And I hope.
Well, let's keep our fingers crossed. They don't try to assassinate Milei, just like there's been political violence by the left in the United States. That would really be a disaster, because what you said earlier is right. I mean, he has that special knack, that ability, the showmanship, to not only have the solid ideas, but then to be a populist, but in the good sense of being a populist in terms of reaching people and inspiring people. So Milei is a one-of-a-kind politician in the sense that he's an anti-politician, but he does it very, very successfully. And so we need him to live long and prosper.
Yes, I hope so too. I mean, I hope they can get rid of the export taxes and maybe really become, because once this stuff gets into motion, it really ends up being a lot better than you think it is. They always call this a miracle, but it's not really a miracle. It's just
no. Matter of fact, I wrote a column a couple of months ago because there were some sort of reasonable center left people who were saying, hey, maybe we should give Milei some credit and give libertarians some credit about this success. And I said the surprise isn't the success. People like you and me have known forever that if you do good policy, you get good results. What's surprising is that Milei was able to get elected in the first place. Then he was able to get some Peronists to support his basis law in 2024. And then what's even super impressive, of course, is what just happened on Sunday, where he is turning voters who used to be professional moochers, he's turning them into libertarians. Now, maybe I'm getting over my skis and getting too optimistic, and maybe it is just more of a generational thing. But boy, it is so refreshing to have something positive happening in the world of economic policy.
Yeah, and I hope we can learn something from this, and it's certainly been fun to watch. I'm much more inspired now that it's happened to me. And I'll confess, it makes me want to move there. It's a remarkable success story. And I mean, he's just
I've been joking with some of my friends that I'm going to defect to Argentina.
And I don't know. After 8 years, I think you could really become an ambassador for just teaching free market principles and hopefully teaching other people to teach this stuff. I mean, if he was fluent in English, he could probably get at least 100,000 for every speaking engagement. I mean,
well, the thing about Milei is he's not motivated by money. He's not motivated by power. Imagine Ron Paul got elected president of the United States, an outsider. Ron Paul was in Congress, but he was really just a commentator because, he never had any power whatsoever. But he did bring a lot of people to libertarianism just by spreading the message and giving the speeches. Milei was sort of playing that role in Argentina, commenting on TV, writing articles, but everyone sort of dismissed him in the same way they dismissed Ron Paul, except Ron Paul never became president. Milei did.
Yeah.
That's the miracle.
Yeah, he's one thing I was just asking, how many people in America know who Javier Milei is, and how many people in Argentina know who Ron Paul is? Well, Daniel, I think we've probably covered just about everything here. It's been great having you on here. I wanted to get a good show about this election. It's absolutely amazing what's happened here. I'm so happy, and I hope that this continues and spreads.
There aren't many times we get to be happy, so let's enjoy it.
Anything else to say about this before we go?
What is it? Milei says, "Viva la carajo."
Viva la libertad, carajo.
Say it slowly.
Viva la libertad, carajo.
Viva la libertad.
I need to learn this. Yeah, I need to learn to speak Spanish slowly because I need other people to speak Spanish slowly with me. Slowly. Thank you.
So I have 4 different Javier Milei t-shirts, and one of them says Viva la Libertad Carajo, but yes. I can't say it in a way that probably any Spanish speaker would understand.
Viva la Libertad Carajo. Of course, my favorite one-liner from Milei, of course, was when the Argentine equivalent of Anthony Fauci died a year ago, and Milei called him hijo de puta, son of whore.
What was it at that dinner we were at in August where Milei spoke? How do you say the guy, the Peronist guy, Kilisov or whatever?
That's
that's the governor of Buenos Aires province or something. But he had some term for it, and I remember asking the people at my table, "Who's he talking about?"
Kuka is one term they use for the bad guys down there. Kuka. But Kuka is a term for the bad guys they use. It's a slang term. Kisilov is just
But he had some term, and of course I forget what it was, but it was very insulting, and I
think it's
but I didn't know who Kisilov was. So
yeah, Kuka is Kuka. That's one of the terms they use. It's
and of course the Costa.
Costa is the cast. Yes.
All right. Well, let's continue to defeat the Costa and the Kukas, and
Kuka is just basically used to refer to Kirchnerists. Yes, Christina Kirchner, their president, who's now in jail. Someday, I don't know if this will be, that's one thing I talk about, economic stability. It's interesting how in Peru they've had 7 presidents in 9 years, but their currency has been relatively stable. That's another, hopefully we'll get a Milei in Peru and some of these other countries. Well, thank you. Daniel Mitchell, where can we find you out there? You've got some columns out there right now.
Well, I write a column every day that I post on my site, which is International Liberty. Just go to any search engine, type in Dan Mitchell International Liberty or Dan Mitchell blog, and you'll find it.
Yes, well, thank you, Dan Mitchell. Please like the show, subscribe to the channel, go buy my novel, Escape from the Village. Check out the Substack. People are giving me money at Buy Me a Coffee. I'm Chris Baker. We're out. Buy my novel, Escape from the Village, from major booksellers online. Go to escapevillage.com. Subscribe to the Substack. Go to fountainheadforum.substack.com. Support the forum. Go to buymeacoffee.com/fountainheadforum. Thank you.